Salutations, I'm Touhou7, and today we've got a new challenge build for you guys. So, we are going to be covering the Boneshredder pistol. Yes, it's a pistol in Borderlands 3. And yes, I am very ticked about that. But it's still a good weapon, and it does perform pretty well here. So, because it's already a decently good weapon mechanically, having multiple projectiles per shot, and it being a high fire rate weapon, I thought I would change up the build style a little bit. I'm running a Terror Zane build. The reason why I'm running Terror is to have Terror ammo regen on the corrosive one, and I also have Terror damage fire rate instead of just getting the global damage enlightenment on the grenade. So I have a lot more fight for your life survivability. I have a See and Dead on, and I have words. I am losing my ability to speak right now. But with how the terror stuff goes here, we do get access to that damage and fire rate while in fight for your life, because I can switch over that face puncher and just proc terror instead of needing an action skill to activate it. Now on the fire one, I have the action skill and shock, because when I'm using the fire one, I'm mostly going to be targeting shielded and fleshed enemies, it being the bandos, the shield soldiers, the heavyweights that are not fire immune, and in some cases not shock immune, because the corrosive one, I have the ammo regen anointment on the corrosive one, so I use that one for conserving ammo, because this is an ammo guzzler. I have a cut purse victory rush on for the entire run. I have a snowdrift, and I probably use it once, if that, during a run. And I did a couple practice runs before I recorded the actual video here. But this build's actually a lot more easy to use than you'd think. The shield that I have on is the Mr. Caffeinated, I think, caffeine, whatever. I don't consume caffeine. That's not my thing. So this is I'm not used to saying the word. Now, with this shield, while it is full, it gives you bonus reload speed and fire rate. And I was like, you know what? Let's just go all in on the freaking fire rate buffs. We have full freaking violent violence. We have the all the fire rate stuff. We have domino effect. We have, again, terror fire rate. Like, I was just like, we're going all in on the fire rate, and I'm putting the shield on. This shield's gonna be a lot of fun. And a lot of the fire rate did balance out the negative side to the shields, where while it's depleted, it reduces your fire rate and reload speed. So having the shield up is kind of a necessity for getting rid of things fast, but it does help a bit when I'm struggling with ammo to just slightly get rid of the shield instead of fully depleting it, just slightly getting rid of a little bit of the shield, so that my ammo regen can keep up with the fire rate of the Boneshredder. When it came to bigger enemies, I focused a lot on using Eraser, so I'd line up shots and get Eraser to proc. And an easy way that I did that was I have the hook augment on the cannon. That way I'm getting, well, the ability to just pull enemies around, which I did think about having the Quasar. I did showcase it a little bit. I did think about it. The Quasar would be a really fun option here, but the issue that I found was I was nuking myself with the Quasar that I had. So I do recommend having a lower level Quasar if you're going to use a Quasar. But a Quasar still works. So, I have a question for y'all. Who do you think is the most difficult boss in all of Borderlands history? Now, let's exclude Veracitus and Tiberius because of their bugged HP values. Who do you guys think are the most difficult in Borderlands history? Again, excluding the bugged HP values on those bosses. You know what? I used radiation on the shield, like the action skill and radiation anointment on the shield, and I probably could have gotten away with using something different in that slot because that was the whole point of the fire and shock Boneshredder. So there's definitely potential for improvement in that. I used that specifically to get radiation explosions, and for when I was firing with the corrosive pistol, having access to stuff that can kill the shielded and HP based enemies. So I posted a video earlier this week on Wednesday covering Hatterax versus Gage. Gage having OP0 gear, and this is an OP10 Hatterax. And I didn't just kill Hatterax with OP0 gear. I went down, and this is what sparked that question. I went down and got all the way down to level 1 gear and still killed Hatterax. Like, it's kind of crazy how low level gear you can have and still kill a boss like that. He's a raid boss, right? But that method would work on every character, because I did it on Gage, and I did not stack Anarchy. Like, the only Anarchy that I got was the stuff I got in the round. And I do believe I went back through at some point and did it without having anything spec'd in Red Tree. I don't think I showcased it in the video, but I do believe I went back through and did it again and it still worked. But it takes forever to get to the stagger phase. But the key thing to it, you don't even need to worry about it. You don't need to worry about getting to the stagger phase, really, because you can take as much time as you want to deal the damage necessary. He doesn't move on to his health regen phase or the enemy spawning phases until after you've knocked him down to stagger the first time. I'm over here talking about a past video, and I'm talking about Borderlands 2 while I'm recording a voiceover for Borderlands 3. Good lord. So some other things to talk about a build. I have Donnybrook on the class mod instead of Violent Violence. I originally was going to do Violent Violence and get 10, but I did notice that survivability was a bit lacking because of how long it could take for the reload speed when the shield was down. So Donnybrook is here to help with that health regen aspect, while still giving me a excuse to get some bonus damage from it. I'm not really running around as much with this build as I am with a lot of other Zane builds, so I'm doing a lot more standing still and ADSing, or just not really running very much, because of just simply how the gameplay loop of this weapon worked. So I did need a little bit more damage from alternate skills like Commitment and Donnybrook. I didn't overly invest in those though, because during subsegments I am actually running fast enough to get the the full bonus that, well, enough of a bonus from Violent Momentum for it to no longer be relevant to have any of those other skills. A lot of the gameplay loop here is use the Face Puncher to proc Terror, or if there is a large group of radiated enemies, shoot one of them with a Groundbreaker Face Puncher shot. Shoot enemies with the Boneshredder, activate action skill to proc ASE on the fire one whenever there's flesh enemies, and then melee the enemies closest to me to get ammo back. Now, while downed, the survivability that we have is actually really strong. So we have access to getting skills like Donnybrook while downed with the See and Dead active. We get access to our terror bonuses for the terror damage fire rate, and we get access to terror ammo regen with the corrosive Boneshredder that I have. So we are getting quite a bit of bonuses while in Fight for Your Life, which is a really difficult thing to do on Zane normally. And I don't typically use the See and Dead just simply because everybody thinks it's like, well, I shouldn't say everybody. There's a lot of people who think it is just the de facto best class mod on Zane. And I as much as I disagree with it, it's really difficult to be like, hey, these other comms are better. When players are getting downed a lot, one of the best utilities for them is to have stuff that helps them in Fight for Your Life. For me, it's definitely not the best comm in most circumstances, because I'm not going in Fight for Your Life very often on Zane. But for people who are trying to learn Zane or learn like new builds and stuff, it is very common, and so getting downs without having any of those tools is really difficult to adjust to. On an unrelated note, what are y'all's thoughts on AI? Because, I've had a varying set of opinions on AI and its usage in the workplace today. There's a lot of issues when it comes to it, but there's also a lot of positive things that come out of it as well. One of the main things that society has been trying to develop is the removal of physical labor intensive work, and trying to make it more safe and optimized for people to do. And in that also comes with the elimination of the lower paying jobs, which at face value is like, that's a bad thing. We're removing jobs from the job market and making it more difficult for people to advance in society. But here's another way to think about it as well. The removal of the lower paying jobs means something else is going to replace that as the lowest paying job. And that job is probably going to be a higher pay, because at that point you're going to be worth more as a worker. It's one of the reasons why there is a giant push to do stuff like college. Getting into college means that you have an easier time, not an easy time, an easier time in getting access to those higher paying jobs, depending on what field you go into. And so AI and automation removing a lot of the jobs that people don't want to do. It does make it a interesting thought process. The removal of jobs that people shouldn't or don't want to be doing. Is that enough of a cost? Is that enough of a worth for the cost of just losing jobs overall? I mean, heck, it's even starting to replace stuff like algorithm checks on different applications, or apps have been trying to say they're going to use it for age identification and stuff like that, instead of people having to put up their like personal information. They would have their internet history tracked through an AI, and they would and that AI would determine whether or not you're an adult or not, which sounds extremely stupid. And at a baseline, I disagree with it, but it makes it a potential solution to the issue of the internet security problem, where putting personal information on the internet in general is just a dangerous thing, and it is starting to become a requirement for a lot of things in life, well, on the internet. I mean, like, there's a lot of workplaces that are requiring having specific applications on your phone. A lot of apartment complexes or housing places are requiring specific apps, and they require you to put in your personal information on there. There's stuff like TurboTax that does your taxes, which means it requires access to your government's information. So having an AI replace some of those when it comes to the age verification side of things, I'd be willing to make a compromise of allowing AI to do stuff while removing some of the risk of privacy issues. Either way, both ways are still going to be privacy issues, but one way is probably going to be better than the other in that regard. The less information that I have to that I'm putting onto the internet or giving anybody access to, the better off that I'm going to be. You know, I would love to start doing this series on other games, like potentially Borderlands 2 or Borderlands 1. I still haven't gotten into the pre-sequel yet. I need to start that at some point. It's still on my list. But I would love to start doing this challenge build series on other games, because I know there's a lot of people who think that everything that's meta is the only option for each respective game. And that's, honestly, after playing Borderlands 2 a bit, I would argue that's wrong, even in Borderlands 2. Now, to clear bosses like Veracitus or freaking Hyperius without the meta gear is really difficult, if not impossible, when it comes to Veracitus. But if you're playing in co-op, which is the whole point of like raid, in the name of the raid boss, is playing like co-ops. The concept behind it requires multiple players, and so if you're playing with multiple players as the baseline, then it does make it possible to do it with off-meta gear. So I would love to be able to showcase a whole bunch of like off-meta gear, and just like I would focus more on like the special gear, like the Seraphs and any of the red text gear. I would more focus on those. But I don't like playing a lot of the meta builds for BL2. So me just playing the game is gonna be like a shock to a lot of people. I don't like the meta stuff. I don't mind playing around with like Blacker Worldburn or Pimpernel Worldburn stuff, because it's just funny number and Salvador can do stupid things. But it's just playing for the funny number and not really playing to enjoy the build. Now, the Flacker setup, you can do the Flacker swap on any character. It's not just a Salvador thing. So by doing it that way, then it's a little bit more understandable, but it's still just like, whatever. I used it for the Cobra farm, though. But the thing about the build was it was all about being tanky. And I was also trying to farm for a freaking Cobra, so I wanted to do fast runs. But there's also other weapons like the Godfinger that I see a lot of people dunk on. And there are uses for the Godfinger. I was using it when I was running Hatterax before I swapped to the Sandhawk for the video. I was running the Godfinger on OP10, and that was a lot of fun running the Godfinger with the Beast Shields to stagger Veracitus. It took a little bit longer than the Sandhawk did, but it was faster than the Lady Fist, and I enjoyed running it that way. It was a lot of fun. And I definitely think that Sniper has more uses than people like to say it does. And there's a lot of weapons that are like that. I mean, I'm interested to see how the Lead Storm does. I'm gonna have to play around with that a little bit. I was talking about it in Discord not too long ago, but how the B shield works when it comes to unlisted projectiles. It gives the full amp to all of the unlisted projectiles. And if I remember right, let me pull it up. Lead Storm, here we go. So, it does the same thing that like the Lyuda does, where it splits the projectile in 3 after a distance. And I am very interested to see how much B shield I can spread on things with that. It definitely seems like a fun little idea. Actually, I may want to put it on my gauge and try it out a little bit. Oh, that's another thing. I'm gonna be starting a series of running non-anarchy OP0 gauge versus OP10 bosses, because I ran against Flint and in the Hatterax video, and that was a lot of fun. I did enjoy practicing and getting set up for that boss fight. What are y'all's opinions on the Boneshredder in each of the games? I definitely think that this is one of the weapons that is carried over to a lot of the games, and not a lot of people even realize that it's in Borderlands 2 and Borderlands 3. But it's definitely a staple of the Borderlands series at this point with the amount of games it's in. It being one of the first red texts you're probably going to get. Between that and the Clipper, it's like those are the two big ones that people remember from BL1. BL2, if you go into that same location that you fought Bonehead in BL1, you still can find a loader bot that's Bonehead 2.0, and it drops from that. Now, in BL3, it drops from the boss that's directly after the anointed bosses right before the Troy fight. I think his name Crushjaw? I'm pretty sure it's Crushjaw. Look it up. Crushjaw. Yep. If you couldn't tell, my favorite Zane archetype is Barrier Mantis Cannon. I don't really play Sentinel very often. I should try doing a Sentinel build soon. I also have a couple, like, grenade-based builds in queue. I haven't set them up or tried to build them yet. I haven't even decided what character I want to build them on yet. But I do have a couple things in mind for grenade-based things. You know, I really should have had an Icebreaker Victory Rush with this as well. When I wasn't using the cut purse, a Icebreaker would have been amazing, because with the amount of projectiles I'm shoving into these guys' faces, I'm proccing Brain Freeze a lot. So constantly having them frozen gives us consistent access to the Icebreaker effect, which would be a really huge damage increase here. And it would help in Fight for Your Life as well. Now, Cut Purse is, again, kind of a necessity to run this, but you can constantly switch between them in your inventory if you want to, and that would do pretty well. Oh, so this video has a little special thing at the end here that might potentially get cut off. That might potentially get cut off after the video drops. We'll see what the retention rates are. I want to play around with the algorithm, because I've been avoiding wanting to do like a corporatized like series style thing, where I'm just running this is the exact format I'm going to do every time, and this is going to be the whatever, being overly formatted. And I just enjoy playing the game, really, and making builds. And so this series kind of just flowed in that way pretty quickly. And after not too long, I started to realize that I got sick of it. So I kind of want to just like try out new things and just play around with stuff. And one of the things that I want to start doing is just seeing how stupid I can make the algorithm think. Because there's several factors to what makes a video perform well, whether it's retention rates, the base view count, the amount of people who click on it when it first releases, or there's just a lot of factors. And so I kind of want to like start inching my way towards taking each of these factors and making them like an extreme outlier and just break things, because that sounds like fun. And one of the first things that came to mind was, what happens if I edit and remove like an ending chunk of the video after it's been posted and people have already watched through that section? So like after about 24 hours or so, maybe 48 hours, just chopping off a section at the end and just see what happens. I do have an extra bit for you guys to watch that I would be chopping off if I do end up doing that. It was during one of my testing runs, and I was very, very sad. I was so ticked when I at the end of that clip. Yeah. It ended in a vendor crash. So I was so freaking ticked. But You guys just need to see what the rest of the clip is. It's absolutely hilarious. So, something interesting about this setup is I run Guardian rank on with all of my builds, just simply because Guardian rank allows for a lot more build diversity that has a lot of unique skills that make different synergies work within skill trees. And it also just adds some funny mechanics like Groundbreaker. And so with this, once in a while I'd use Groundbreaker with the Face Puncher, because the Groundbreaker, all it's doing is transferring the last damage that you did for the past couple seconds and inputting it into that melee damage. So realistically, it's realistically the damage that you were already dealing with your guns, just focused from the last 5 seconds. So I feel like it's fair to use in these kinds of runs. And what I started doing is I would get again, I talked about this a little bit earlier. I'll get a group of enemies radiated, and I'd shoot one of them with Groundbreaker and blow them all up. Well, an interesting consequence of that, you could chain the Groundbreaker off of that radiation explosion, depending how low HP enemies are at that point. I didn't use it in the video very much, but that is a mechanic that you can abuse. The amount of shenanigans I did to get through Wotan with this setup is ridiculous. I got a whole bunch of accuracy skills, and usually I dog on people for getting accuracy skills, because, like, why are you doing that? There are very few reasons as to why you want accuracy skills, because your skills are very valuable. Every freaking point in your skill tree matters. There are very few that don't, and the ones that don't have some other skill that you need to get those to get, and it has a indirect reason as to why you are getting it. So every skill matters, and accuracy skills don't typically matter because you're taking potential damage or survivability away to add a more pinpoint shot to your gun, which typically follow the center of the axis anyways. Well, even with Max Terror, all 4 projectiles still followed the center axis of the crosshair. The issue that I started to run into, though, is when I'd hold down the trigger, that causes the projectiles to spread more and more. And so the spread of the projectiles, it's just 4 projectiles per shot, so they were just going everywhere. And I was getting, like, huge freaking diamonds that didn't hit the boss. So what I had to do, I had to get a little bit of accuracy skills, and that fixed my problem. Also, the skills in Purple Tree for the skill 1 are not very good for fast fiery builds. There is accuracy, which, okay, whatever, I'm using it here. There is Renegade, which is giving us health regen, which I could have put points into instead of getting Donnybrook, but Donnybrook was 5 points that I wasn't really spending on a damage skill anyways from the class mod. And then the last one is the ammo refund skill, where on a critical kill, it do ammo back. It's just like, it's only 1 ammo. It's not even like it's not the full amount of ammo that you used on that target. It's not, hey, the amount of ammo that you spent on that projectile to kill that target. No, it's just 1 ammo of whatever you're holding. Okay, whatever. And hey, look at that. We are at the part that I'd probably splice off now, since we've killed the top half and bottom half. Is a takedown confirmed. So The rest of this video after this point may not be viewed by everybody. We'll see. Freaking hilarious bit at the end, though. So I do recommend you guys stick around for it. I was so ticked at the end of it. And yeah, that's gonna be the end on my voiceover here. So I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and see y'all in the next one. Bye bye.